It's time for the Day 4 update of the crazy Fort Wall battle, with the 1302 War Camp battling against 846. We'll also get a look at the other side of the map, where there's still fighting between 525 and 945. Let's get going. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, and this must be one of the most spectated KVKs of all time, because the number of people tuning in to get an update about a fort wall is crazy. So if you haven't already subscribed, consider doing so, just like all these other people have, to tune in for the daily updates. Let's get a look at the top of the fort wall, which is the most critical portion of what's going on. The top of the fort wall has slowly and steadily been pushed back from its original position by about a fort and a half worth of length, maybe almost 2 forts worth of length, which is a big deal because there's only so much space between these forts and the pass. Now, it does look like there's a really tight grouping of forts over here, allowing for literally only one column of gain at a time. And there's now a Song back fort that has been placed here, which I believe is designed to prevent, in a worst case, if they run out of resources completely in this alliance. I'm not entirely sure why they would have put a different alliance's fort here, other than to get prepared in advance, or if resources run out, and maybe they'll switch over from using HSA forts to using Song forts. We'll see how that sort of evolves as we go. There's only literally one square of Song territory where you can be ported onto the alliance territory, which is kind of wild. Now, if we look at how the progress is being made, you can see there's a bunch of fighting going on here. The Sin fort is what they're using to push progress right now. The fort is burning. There is still probably 8, maybe 6 hours of burn left on this Alliance fortress at 58,800 hit points remaining before the fort that's behind it will be revealed. Similarly, the fort over here's got, let's call it 6 hours at 45,000 hit points remaining. Then there's this back fort over here, which will prevent too much progress from being made down to the south. That's the goal. I do think, however, it is possible that they'll be able to drop another fort in this corner. And if they drop a fort in this corner, if Sin does, then they may be able to get at some of these flags. So HSB may need to fall back soon, but it looks like that's already on the menu. In the next, let's call it 2 to 3 hours, this fort over here with 15,000 hit points is going to fall. They're going to have to back build it, and I imagine they want to back build it in a way such that it's also going to cover this northern flank. The other alternative is that when this fort dies, they could maybe delete a flag and build the fort down here, but that sounds all really risky. I think they just need to back fort with HSB in a way that's just really, really cautious. And you can see, look at this, 846 is really moving in. They see the opportunity to apply this extra pressure, and they're going for it with a fort over here. Now, that fort will also allow them to start to burn HSC once this front fort goes down, but it's going to be a long time before that happens. With 116,000 durability, there probably are a few more opportunities to actually defend that HSC fort. The HSK fort is also burning, and they're slowly starting to lose some of the critical territory that they need to hold the line. The forts all the way down here are the ones that are probably pressured the least, and at this point, it doesn't even look like they're defending them. So these forts are free burning, and at the end of the day, this grouping is probably not the bottleneck. The real key, if you're going to defend anything, it's the northmost forts. That's it. Now, I want to call out a tactic that's been deployed here, and 846 did this to us when I was in 1075 many years ago. I didn't want to talk about it on stream because I didn't want to remind them to do it, but they did random port a bunch of cities into the back line, okay? Now, why is that relevant? At least I think they random ported a bunch of cities in the back line. I could be wrong on that. Some of these may actually be, let's get a look here. Is it 846? Yeah, they have. Okay, I thought so. So what are they doing? They're random porting cities into the open teleport spaces and then bubbling in order to prevent these alliances from having territory to port cities onto. So I think it's a very smart move. It does look like there's a lot of free space right now, which I would argue is just really, 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 really risky on the part of our allies to leave all that space open, because I just worry about farms bubbling and random porting in and then permanently taking up space on the map. I don't like that it works that way, but it does. The only alternative that you have to solve that problem would be to delete one of your own flags, then rebuild it. And then if that territory would then cover a city that's not from your, I guess, alliance, then it would get ported out. I think that's a way you could kind of work around this issue. But it is a smart a tactic. I don't like that it exists because it's kind of cheesy, but like, hey, as long as it exists, use it. It ain't any less cheesy than forts on forts on forts. So these cities, right? A Wib city, you've got a Cap city. This alt is also 846. So you can see they are trying to take up the critical teleport space with this tactic. And you know, it is what it is. It's a tactic. Use what's at your disposal, right? In the other side of the map, we can get a look at what's going on here. And this is very interesting in the way that this evolved. You may recall there was an ELI fort all the way down over here. And that territory's actually been burned off. So 945 may have found a stronghold, a foothold, for part of the zone anyways, to kind of hang on. Meanwhile, all this yellow territory, and even some of this blue territory over here, is from 525 creeping around the map, burning all the forts that they can get access to. Some of those are being successfully defended. And again, I think that's just a smart play. 945 should try to force the issue of having to fight forts. And I think that's just the smartest way to run things. So if I were them, I would be doing something similar, forcing 525 to have to fight forts, which is such a pain. And you can see that even over here, I mean, they burned back some of the territory. So I don't know if 525 is just kind of waiting to maneuver into this part of the map, if they figure they have plenty of time. I think the reality is that they do have plenty of time. And even if they somehow found a way to back fort, I don't think you could hold on to that land long enough for the remaining 6 or 7 days necessary to get into the next zone. So it does look like our allies in 525 will ultimately get control of the zone, but there's still a lot of work to do to actually make that happen. And still, 525, or rather 945, has not built into Anjou to join their allies 365. 365 and 1254 on opposing sides of the map still are just kind of staring, watching what's happening, okay? And I suppose being helpful where we can to our allies. The lock-in is much more thorough now in this right-hand portion of the map, which, you know, certainly I would have expected. And they've filled in a lot of this territory, which, again, you would expect them to just cover all the fort drop spots, to just really shut the door on 302 if they can. And the real question is, how many days can 1302 hold? It all depends on how much they can slow the burning rate here. If they can slow the burning to 1 fort a day, I mean, you've got 1, 2, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, you could hold for another 7 days potentially just on forts. I think it may be achievable for 1302 to actually still be holding this pass. As crazy as that sounds, it may be achievable for them to continue hold the pass. If we look at the chronicles, I can show you again very briefly here that, you know, the Hurons are about to open. Okay, in 12 hours they open. In about, 2 days after that, we get the trial of Khao Karak. 2 days after that, we get the 3rd auxiliary skill slot. This is the Orleans KVK. Another 2 days, and the level 12 forts arrive, and another 2 days, the level 5 pass becomes unsealed. I mean, you're looking at like 8.5 days of needing to hold. Hey, that's just a long time, chat. I don't know. The thing that 846 needs to do, if they can find a way to do it, is to creep around from the top or the bottom and to be able to burn some of these flags that are behind. But I don't think that's possible. The fort footprint should cover the entire top to bottom here, which you can kind of see that it does. So the mountain width here was either intentionally or accidentally designed to be a perfect single fort protection layer. So it'll be really easy to back fort, although it will be really hard to get the port space necessary to actually try to defend this thing. It is possible we should start exiling for our allies. I'll ask them if they want to do that. Being bubbled on someone else's territory means the Kingscale exile can be used. So a lot of this space could be freed up, I would think. If they want it, maybe that's something we'll do. I'll have to see. I'm sure our leadership has thought of that. I'm not the first person to have come up with that idea, okay? If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. This is the day 4 update. It looks like there's another 7 to 8 days of holding. The 23rd is when the pass opens, and all hell breaks loose. For the first time in God only knows how long, 1254 will actually be fighting in a KVK against opponents that are actually trying to win the KVK. So it's gonna be really crazy. And if you're looking for more information, like what the heck happened to even get to this position, I'll have cards in the end screen for earlier updates and the pass opening to get you to speed.